All right. Hello and welcome to Addicted to Lacrosse. This is Season 2, Episode 13 for Sunday, March the 22nd, 2015. My name is Graham Perro. With me, as usual, are Tyler Fitch and Melissa Daphne. We have our Q&A app running on Google+, so send us any questions or comments during the show and we will get to them. And we're also available on Twitter if the Google+ thing doesn't work, at Lax Podcast, and send us your comments there. We had 4 games in the NLL this past weekend to talk about, but first of all, a couple of news items. I was going to say minor news items, but that's not exactly fair to these guys. John Grant passed Colin Doyle on the overall career points list. He is now second in league history in points at 1,339 points. Not bad. And the NLL tweeted this earlier today, and saying congratulations to Grant, and John Tavares responded to that saying congratulations, Junior, and Grant responded to him saying thanks, only 1,000 more to pass you. And I have good news for John Grant. He only has 394 points to make up for to catch Mr. Tavares. So basically, take his best season ever and do that 3.5 times starting at the age of 40. So no problem there. Anyway, congrats to John Grant. That's quite a number of points. And I meant to look up who's behind him. Well, obviously Colin Doyle's about 4 behind him, but after that, I don't know. I should be able to get that in just a second. Josh Sanderson is behind him. I guess Sanderson's probably approaching Doyle because he started off about 60 points behind Grant at the beginning of the season, and I think they have roughly the same number of points this season. So Sanderson, I assume, will at some point pass Doyle as well this season to become third place after Grant and Tavares. Also, and Tyler just corrected me, Rhys Dutch is now the team goal-scoring leader. I was going to say the team point-scoring leader for the Stealth organization. And I'm assuming that's going all the way back to the Albany days. But Gary Rosiski was the previous record holder there, and now it's Rhys Dutch. So good job for Rhys.
Yeah, I'm almost certain it goes back to Albany. Yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
Just talking about all-time goals on the Mammoth page, which, by the way, I think somebody might want to rethink their titles on there. It says Grant is expected to pass Gary Gait to move into second all-time in career goals later this season. So another kind of interesting tidbit there.
Yeah, going into the season, Gait had 635, Grant had 602. I don't have Grant's numbers in front of me, but he's got to be getting close. The next one is John Tavares with 802, so he's got 170 to go after that. So yeah, good luck to that. But I guess it's possible if he plays till he's 46, then he could probably do it. Looks like we have a special guest host with Tyler today.
Yeah, your ability to keep going while the cat looks in the camera is impressive.
All right, we had 4 games this week. Let's start off with Friday's game. I don't know if you guys managed to see this. I was watching it, but I do have to admit that after, say, after the first half, when starting to get into the second half, I was kind of paying less attention because it was kind of out of hand by that point. This, of course, was Calgary's win over the New England Black Wolves. Calgary pretty much dominated this whole thing. They took the lead 1:46 into the first quarter and never gave it up, winning 20-9. Did they have any? No, I was going to say they might have had an empty netter at the end there, but they didn't. They did have 4 shorthanded goals and a power play goal in the fourth quarter alone. So special teams might be a bit of an issue for the Black Wolves there. Frank Chiliano played really well, I thought. It did look like the New England offense had some trouble getting some good shots away. They were missing the net, and I think there were a number of posts in there as well. The Calgary offense was obviously outstanding. Sean Pollock made his debut as a roughneck and got a couple of goals. That was nice. Dane Doby had 6 goals and a couple of assists. Sean Evans had 5 and 6. Dixon had 4 and 7. Shatler had 3 and 2. So everybody was just going really well. Yeah, Calgary just did not look like a 2 and 8 team during this game. There was some really nice goals in there as well. It wasn't all just. I guess there was a couple of ugly ones, but for the most part, there were some nice ones. Curtis Dixon just had an outstanding behind-the-back pass to Jeff Shatler, who was just standing on the doorstep waiting for it, and so they just.
I don't think he was even standing on the doorstep. I think he was cutting, and it was just he got hit in stride on the cut behind the back. That was the most impressive part.
Yeah. I mean, Dixon's obviously known for his goal-scoring prowess, but that was just a beautiful pass, a beautiful setup there. Yeah, that's really all I had to say about that one. Tyler, did you manage to see this one?
No, I was out coaching my high school team on Friday night, so I had to miss it at the same time. But that's the one highlight I saw was Dixon hitting Shatler, who was cutting, and the next night we have Adam Jones hitting Westervelt sitting on the doorstep, similar to that, with behind-the-back pass. But the fact that Shatler was on the run and he hit him perfectly was, I think, even better, more amazing.
How about you, Melissa? Did you see this one?
Unfortunately, I did not see this one. This one was on NL Live only, and when I saw it was a blowout, I really didn't try to seek this one out. But it really does have to make you wonder. I mean, obviously I didn't see it, so I'm just going by the score sheet and what I'm hearing. But when you have Calgary, who went almost the entire season without winning a game, and you have New England that started off so strong, it really makes me wonder what has happened to the Black Wolves. They really just came so out of the gate like they were going to really make a name for themselves this season, and they really seem to be struggling.
We did mention, I think, at one point earlier in the season, when I think they won their first 2 games, then they lost a couple after that. We thought hopefully they haven't just peaked early and gotten out of the way. Let if you're going to peak in an 18-game season after game 2, that's a little too early to be doing that. But let me see what they've done since then. I guess they're 3 and 6. They've only won once since then. Where did it go? Yeah, they beat the Swarm last weekend, I guess it was. But yeah, 5 losses in a row in between there. So yeah, whatever momentum they might have had from those first 2 games was long gone. So it looks as if it's between New England and Minnesota for last place in the East, unless one or both of those teams really turn it around. Game number 2, Saturday night. Edmonton in Toronto. I should have known that because I was there. This was an outstanding game. It was a lot of fun. It was very entertaining. As a Rock fan, I would have preferred an alternative ending, but it was right down to the wire. I mean, there was no time at all during that game where you thought, okay, well, this one's over, or even, well, the Rock are ahead, so they'll probably end up winning. I mean, we all know what Edmonton is capable of, so nobody was thinking that at all. And even when it got down to the end and there was only a minute left or 2 minutes left, and Edmonton had the lead, I still thought we all know the Rock could possibly come back from this because they've had a number of come from behind victories this year. But excuse me, but it didn't happen. Nick Bilic, of all people, tied the game with about 5 minutes left, and then 2.5 minutes after that put the Rush ahead. So he's not exactly the guy you would expect to get the game-winning goal, but he did. And yeah, the Edmonton offense was clicking pretty well. Both goalies had good games, and I did think sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. Edmonton only had 3 goals in the first half. So it looked like their offense wasn't clicking quite as well in the first half as it was in the second. They were missing Riley Lowen and somebody else. Who else was missing? Somebody else was missing. Anyway, all the 3 goals from from Edmonton in the first half looked like they went 5-hole on Brandon Miller, um, and they couldn't score anywhere else, but they did score a couple times there. Second half they pulled it together. Toronto seemed to have a lot of trouble getting shots at Aaron Bold. I mean, Aaron Bold played a really good game as well, but they were really having trouble getting shots at him. And my expert analysis of that is that Edmonton has a really good defense. So write that one down in case you want to keep that for later. I'm not generally one to complain about the refs, but there did seem to be an awful lot of calls. There were a lot of calls against the Rock for things that I didn't think needed to be penalties. There were even a couple of calls against the Rush for things I didn't think needed to be penalties. And there were certainly a handful of cases. I think more often they were calling stuff that they didn't need to, but there were a couple of cases where they were letting stuff go that they probably should have been calling. So I think Teddy Jenner even tweeted something about that as well, that the ref would not be on John Lovell's Christmas list this year. Every time the Rock win, I talk about Brett Hickey and what a great pickup he was for the Rock this year. There was at least a couple of shots in this game, and I've noticed it in previous games as well. The way my tickets are, I'm basically center of the floor, about 17 rows up. And a lot of cases, if there's a player on the left side aiming at the net, I can basically see right over his shoulder. And so that angle works really well. And he happened to score one from right there. And you could see exactly what was happening. It looked like he was aiming bottom left, and Aaron Bold went bottom left to, I guess, to his right, and the shot went the other corner. It was really deceptive. Obviously fooled Bold completely, and I've seen Hickey do that a number of times. I don't remember if, and Tyler, maybe you know this, I don't know if Hickey led the WLA in points last year, or maybe he just led his team, but he was right up there in the WLA last year, if I remember correctly.
It was either last year or 2 years ago. He really had a bust-out summer as well, as soon as he went to the Adirondacks and started playing. I think it was last summer, though. Yeah. He was top of the league, I think, because he played every game, while the fly-in stars didn't get there every weekend.
So, yeah, I mean, looking at his NLL stats before the season, I think he played 10 games or something like this total, and had not many more points than that. So I do remember putting in my my preseason talk about the Rock in particular. They had lost Billings, they had lost Doyle, and replaced them with Brett Hickey. That didn't sound like a really good move to me. And not to say that he easily replaces those two, because everybody else has stepped up their game as well. But if we thought, well, if we get 50 or 60 points from this guy, that'll be great. Well, he's way past that already. So, so good job on picking up Mr. Hickey. And speaking of Rock forwards, I happened to notice in the third quarter that Nick Diachenko seemed to be playing an awful lot of offensive shifts. And I thought that was a little weird. He's played the offense in the past, but I don't remember him playing that many offensive shifts in the first half. And so I thought, well, is somebody missing? And I kind of looked around and noticed that Rob Hellier wasn't anywhere. He wasn't on the floor. He wasn't on the bench. We couldn't find him. So I immediately grabbed my phone and went to Twitter to see if there was something there. And it turned out that he had gotten injured late in the first half and was going to miss the rest of the game. Now, I've heard nothing since then, so I have no idea if it was just a tweak and he'll be fine next weekend, or if he's gone for the season, or anything in between. Of course, our first thought was, well, if he's out for any length of time, does that mean the Rock are going to bite the bullet and give Garrett Billings what he wants to get another forward? And of course, we haven't heard anything since then, but that's certainly one possibility. And if JB Dowek was maybe regretting the comments he made earlier about Billings never playing for the Rock again, he might have decided this is a good opportunity to say, well, I kind of changed my mind, but because we had no other choice with Hellier out. So hopefully he's not out for very long. but I guess hopefully, like I said, The Rock will announce something this week about how he's doing. Melissa, you managed to see this one?
I did see this one. This one was a fun one to watch. I really enjoyed this one. Um, it was it was one of those games that you're watching and you're like so caught up in the energy because even by the fourth quarter it was so close, but it didn't seem like either team was really falling off. Like there was just so much energy, and that really stood out to me because one of my frustrations watching so many of the Mammoth games is they take their foot off the gas, or by fourth quarter they just kind of look gassed. And I see some other teams too. Obviously, with the Mammoth being home, I probably see more. And so when you see a team, well, two teams that are still just fighting every single play, they're really going after the loose balls. They're really hitting the net hard, and they're just really just playing hard like it was the first quarter. It was really exciting to see. I really liked this game. It was very exciting. I definitely wondered what was going on at the end there with the Rock coach really shouting some niceties at the ref, so that he had to be dragged away. I don't know if Graham might be able to shed some light on that. Um, but it was definitely a good game. Bold had an 83% save percentage. I mean, he faced 52 shots, which definitely isn't shabby, and had 43 saves. Brandon Miller was still pretty good with 79%. I mean, he faced 47 shots. So it's not like either offense was going easy on these goalies, and they were doing a pretty good job. I really am kind of wondering because we've already seen these guys face each other twice, and the last game was close too. Are we really seeing the potential Champion Cup matchup here? What do you think, Tyler?
Everything is pointing to that for sure. I think the biggest subplot I just want to watch happen is Hellier be out, and then we need to get Garrett Billings. That'll be just. I mean, there's not like press conferences like they can do in the big leagues. Hey, we got to get this guy to come in, but it'll just be kind of funny. Like, yeah, we may have misspoke. Yeah, I got to watch most of this game. It was great to see teams play at this level. There is like a difference. You watch New England and they're not this sharp. You watch the Stealth and they're not this sharp either, or they can't stop a team defensively like the Rush can. So when you see these two teams playing their best game, it's a really good lacrosse game to watch, and I'm glad we got to see it for the second time in about a month. I was surprised that Edmonton could kind of pull away at the end there. They just did not quit in the situation and held on nicely to get that win on the road. I think they'll take all sorts of confidence coming out of that. It's like, yeah, we lost him at home, but it was overtime. We went to their place and beat them up. Not beat them up, but it's 2 goals, and they got to feel good. And I agree completely that this is looking like the championship matchup for this year. But the playoffs always go a little sideways somewhere. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out.
Yeah, we know we have some spoiler teams. I think what I was most surprised about with this game is it did not go to overtime. I was fully expecting an overtime.
As was I.
Yeah, that would not have surprised me either. One thing I did want to mention as well is the return of Jesse Gamble to the Rock lineup. And man, was it nice to see him back again. I mean, the one thing I always think of as soon as I think of Jesse Gamble is fast. And, I mean, there's no question that guy's fast. And I'd love to see him and Joey Capito in some kind of speed race, but that would be pretty good. But he does everything. He's not just fast. He's fighting for loose balls in the corners. He's intercepting passes. He just works hard at everything. Now, right at the end of the second quarter, and maybe you guys know this, but I thought it was Jesse Gamble. I read somewhere on Twitter that it was actually Sandy Chapman. But like 5 seconds left, Edmonton pulled their goalie at the end of the first half. Miller made the stop. I thought it was Gamble who picked up the rebound and launched it the entire length of the floor and actually scored. Now, I mean, the ball went in a good half second to a second after the buzzer went, so it didn't count. But that was an amazing shot. like I said, I thought it was Gamble, and somebody else said it was Chapman. But either way, it was an outstanding shot. So good job for whoever that was. Yeah, I guess that's it for that game. Next one, we may not be able to say much about because it doesn't sound like any of us watched it. Minnesota and Buffalo. This was at the same time as the Rock game, so obviously I wasn't able to watch it. I did notice that Callum Crawford returned after missing 3 games, but Logan Schuss was out. And I meant to check this afternoon, but never had a chance. But have the Swarm had a full roster at all this year? Schuss has missed 3 or 4 games. Now they said he was going to miss the whole season, so obviously that's good for them that they've gotten so much playing time out of him. But Crawford's missed 3. Kyle Matisse has missed 1 or 2. Obviously their goalie's missed 1 because Corbin Tao played backup. Yeah, it just seems like every game that Minnesota plays, some significant piece of the puzzle is missing. And not having a consistent lineup is certainly not going to help them have a good season, and they don't seem to be. Tyler, did you manage to see this one?
I had it on at the same time as the Rock game, but I was listening to the Rock game, so I was only able to look over and see what was happening with this game. I was really happy to see Crawford back. I was really freaking out about how Minnesota could survive it all this season. I mean, they still didn't win this game, but they looked better at times with Crawford in there. He got 2 of the first 3 goals, and it was nice because they don't ever really tell us what's wrong with people when they're hurt, other than like upper body, lower body, or sometimes nothing, right? I didn't know anything about the status with Crawford, but he's back, and very important for their team. But I agree. The fact that they don't have a consistent lineup is absolutely brutal for the Swarm to build any momentum or consistency. They need to power through that. The Buffalo really came out blazing. It was 6-3 after 1, and then they had 3 goals and 3 goals in the next 2 quarters. They didn't score anything in the 4th quarter, though. I don't know if they just were on autopilot because they were up 12-6 at the start of the 4th, and they're like, oh, it's in the bag. But against a better team, you'll give up 6 goals if you have that attitude. And unfortunately, against the Swarm, they're kind of a negative reinforcement that we took our foot off the gas and got the win. And I think no team should ever do that in this league.
Well, we've seen Minnesota specifically make some really big comebacks.
Yeah. So that would be a little troubling. That's like if you're going to nitpick on a 12-8 win, I'd say that's it. Other than that, they played a great game, and Cosmo had a great game, and it was everything that the Buffalo and their fans could have wanted.
Yeah, the scoring line in this game I didn't actually notice before, but it is kind of odd that Buffalo had 5 goals in less than 6 minutes in the first quarter, including 2 goals within 3 seconds. Then from the end of the first to the middle of the second, another 4 goals in 6 minutes, and then 3 goals scattered over the 3rd quarter, and then nothing in the 4th. So Minnesota had 2 groups of 3 and 1 group of 2, so it was a very streaky game, it looked like. No goals in the 4th quarter might be a little concerning for Buffalo, though I guess they did pull off the win, but even still, I can't imagine Mr. Cordingley is all that thrilled about that. And finally, we get to Colorado and Vancouver. I managed to see the 4th quarter of this one after getting home from the Rock game. But Tyler, I imagine you watched this one, so I'll let you start.
Maybe I could have found a better use for a couple hours of my time than how this one ended up. It was the inconsistent stealth showed up. They did have kind of the lineup I was hoping for. Rory Smith was back playing on defense, but offensively the stealth put nothing together. I don't have a guess for that other than maybe now that they've played a couple games successfully, teams have film on those 5 or 6 forwards, especially with Corey Small in the lineup, So they're able to counteract or counterbalance the early success of that lineup with experience now. And they maybe looked at what the Rush did a week ago when they shut down the Stealth and say, all right, that's the game tape. That's against this offense, what we need to do. And then the Mammoth came out and could repeat what they saw and shut down the Stealth, and could make for a long rest of the season if that happens. I think what else here? It was kind of interesting watching Tyler Branch basically go against Rory Smith. He kept, I don't want to say picking on him, but he really focused on Rory. Gave him a lot of after the whistle calls, like 2 penalties, I think, that were like dead ball, and they didn't say anything then like a dead ball or after the whistle thing. I don't know if he was talking to him. One time, Justin Salt hit Grant late, and they blew the whistle, and they gave Smith a penalty and sent him to the box. It was I couldn't imagine why that was going on, but it was weird to see. Like, it was weird enough that I'm mentioning it because it didn't seem right. That was not part of the game, what was happening. I don't know. Mammoth looked great. They looked like they're the team that opened up the season and I think beat the Stealthy in the home opener in the second game some early on. Jeremy Noble is a huge bump for the Mammoth offense because I think that they realized with Westervelt in there and Pollock, they were all goal scorers. They're finishers. But Noble, who's been scoring goals, also is a setup man. So he keeps the ball moving a lot better than what they had. And so the move of Noble for Pollock is looking beautiful. It's paying off greatly so far. And he's had a great couple of weeks to get started. A little worried about how that plays out for the next numerous years, him anchoring that offense. Melissa, did you get to watch this one at all?
No, unfortunately I did not. This one was only on NL Live, and so I just watched basically Point Streak. And just watching from that, it sounds like I saw a very different game. It seemed like it was a lot closer, a lot more within Vancouver's reach than I expected it to be. So it's interesting to hear you say that the Mammoth looked like they did at the beginning of the season, because just watching the score, I actually was wondering if it was the opposite. It's really exciting to hear that Noble's doing so well. I just kind of wish we might have been able to keep Pollock as well and had that tandem. But hopefully, I'm actually going to get to see him play. We actually come back home next week. It's definitely been a crazy season. I've missed more Mammoth games this season than I have the entire 12 seasons I've been a season ticket holder. Whether not being able to watch them on TV or not being able to go to the games. I think I've missed 1, maybe 2 games in 12 years. And this season alone, I've missed 5. Or will miss 5, I should say, because I can't attend any of the Friday games. So not being able to watch yet another game was really frustrating. So it's interesting to hear a very different perspective, because from what I was watching, it definitely seemed very different.
It was close in the first half, but the second half, it never felt good.
Well, it's odd because the first half they were certainly back and forth a number of times, and then Colorado had a 5-goal streak to put them up 9-4, and then Vancouver came right back and scored 4 in a row in about 4 minutes to get it right back to 9-8. Now, I was going to say they never got the lead again. They did tie it at the beginning of the fourth, and then Joey Capito put them ahead, and Jeremy Noble scored the game winner early in the fourth quarter.
See, it didn't feel that close. It was a bummer watching. I don't know, things weren't clicking for the Stealth. They got some goals, but it didn't feel like they were ever creating goals. They were just getting goals that came their way.
It's kind of unfortunate, I imagine, for defenders, and this is relating to Jeremy Noble, in that his entire NLL career has been 2 games. Now they've been 2 very, very good games, but there seems to have been an awful lot more talk about Jeremy Noble in the last 2 games than there has been about his brother Jason Noble in 2 years. Jason's been a solid defender for the Swarm, that is, ever since he was I can't remember exactly when he was. He was a top top 3 or 4 pick anyway in the draft a couple of years ago by the Swarm. And he's been, like I said, a solid defender. But chicks dig the long ball, right? The offensive guys get all the news, and you don't hear much about Jason. And Jeremy's the biggest guy there is. So I guess that's par for the course for defenders, though.
Yeah. It's even weirder that they're twins and they came in a year apart, but that's how it works out, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if Jeremy went back to school or was in a different program than Jason was and finished later, or yeah, I don't know what the deal was there exactly.
One of them went to Cornell, one of them went to Denver, I think, and I think that's correct. Or maybe they both went to Denver, but it was, I think there was something around maybe like a year of postgraduate high school work before he went to college for Jason here. So he was ended up a year behind.
That would have been Jeremy, because Jeremy was a year behind.
Yeah, see, I get him backwards. I'm sorry.
And then of course Jeremy managed to sit out the first half of the season because the Nighthawks didn't bother trading him. I guess they didn't decide. I guess they just waited until the right deal came along. And I mean, if Noble continues to play the way he's been playing, it was certainly a good deal for the Mammoth. And the Nighthawks get 2 first-rounders out of it, so not bad for them either.
I wonder if he's this long con to troll his brother and be like, look, you go in the league first. I'll even give you a year and a half. I'll spot you a year and a half, and I'll score more points than you in 5 games.
No, I think Jason has a handful of points in a year and a half, so I think Jeremy beat him in game 1.
Oh, man.
That's going to make for some interesting Thanksgiving dinner discussions at the Noble household. Okay, moving on to our predictions from last week. And Tyler may just want to hang up on this one right now. Melissa and I both went 4-0, picking all 4 games correctly. Tyler did not. You did get the Calgary game right, and then you missed the other 3.
I was trying to make a move. Got to get up in those standings somehow.
So I guess that backfired, didn't it? So Tyler is now 23-26 overall, still awfully close to 500, not bad. I jumped over 500, so I'm now 26-23, and Melissa's still a game ahead of me at 27-22. Another 4 games this week, and Melissa, since you are in first place, I will let you go first.
You know, there 2 of these games, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely know who I'm picking here. 2 of these I went, what? No? Well, I don't know. So 2 of these were practically a coin toss for me. With Minnesota and New England, they're both just not playing there. And like we were saying earlier, Minnesota they don't seem to have all the pieces of the puzzle. And if they get them, they might actually be a team to contend with. We've seen them do some very surprising things. New England has only won 3 games. 2 of those were in the first half of the season when we were talking so highly of them. So it was really hard to pick this one. I think I'm going to go with New England, though, and I've waffled back and forth on that one a few times, so now that I've said it, we're stuck there. But it really is. I could go either way, and I could justify reasons for either way. With Edmonton and Rochester, I'll go with Edmonton. They're just playing so strong. I just don't think I would pick them most of the time. With Toronto and Calgary, I'm going to go with Toronto. They're playing strong too. And then we go back to Vancouver and Colorado. Like I said, from what I saw, it seemed like it was a closer game. And Vancouver really loves to come to Denver and just beat the Mammoth. And they seem to do it more frequently than the Mammoth would like. And especially as that's the night that Gavin Prout's jersey is getting retired, I just see them coming in as a spoiler. So we're going to go with Vancouver. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I would love to see that happen as well. Let's see. So first game, though, is Minnesota at New England. New England, I would kind of categorize as awful last weekend. So they didn't give me a lot of faith in picking them to beat Minnesota. So I'm going to go with Minnesota to win that game. Edmonton at Rochester, we've they've beat the best, as you could say, because Toronto does have the best record. So there's everything in their power to go ahead and beat Rochester this weekend, and I'll pick them. Toronto at Calgary. I'm going to go with Toronto on this one. It should be a great matchup. The 3-8 Calgary. If the team from last weekend shows up, they can run and gun. Could be a great matchup, but Toronto will look to just have the one loss and not get multiple losses strung together. I think they'll come out strong and can beat Calgary. Finally, Vancouver at Colorado. Yeah, Vancouver is great at going to Colorado and getting the wins and ruining the blackout nights or any other special nights going on. And I would love to see them ruin Gavin Prout's night. It would just feel delightful, but I don't see it happening after the way they played last weekend with these two teams. And Stealth had one of their better defenses out there and still couldn't get the win. So I'll go with Colorado beating Vancouver. What do you got for picks, Graham?
Okay, let's see. Looks like mostly the same as Melissa's. Minnesota and New England. Yeah, it's kind of battle of the bottom. And I guess I'm looking at Minnesota as more inconsistent, whereas New England was sort of good for a while and then not so good, whereas Minnesota has shown a lot more, at least really good quarters, even if they haven't played well in a whole game. So I'm gonna say New England in this one, just because, like I said, Minnesota's a little more inconsistent. Edmonton, Rochester. Yeah, this one was tough because I think Rochester's playing back near the form where they were playing last year and won the championship. Edmonton is playing near the form where they were last year at 15-0 and didn't quite make the championship, but still were likely the best team in the league last year. So this is going to be a pretty good matchup, and I'm going to take Edmonton here. Hopefully, I don't really know. I don't really have a good reason for this, other than we've seen Edmonton. Obviously, they have an outstanding defense, but Rochester's defense is pretty good too. Edmonton has shown in a couple of games against the Rock for sure that they can go head to head with the best offense in the league. And Rochester's offense is certainly not shabby either. So I think Edmonton can certainly match up with them. So I'm going with the Rush on that one. Toronto, Calgary. This is going to be a good game, and I'm really looking forward to watching this one. I was hoping it was going to be on TSN, but I just checked in. It is not. But I'll be able to watch it on NLL Live, which I guess means Melissa will not. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this one. Calgary is looks like they've left the whole we're an 0-16 thing behind, and that's not going to help them in the long run in their standings. But the last couple of games, I think, have given them confidence enough to say, okay, we've left that behind. We've moved on. We're now back to the Roughnecks that people expected us to be. But I still think the Rock will come out on top in this one. And Vancouver, Colorado, this one was a tough pick as well. But I like what Jeremy Noble is adding to the Colorado offense. And Vancouver has been hot and cold all season. I actually thought they played okay in the game on Saturday, what I saw of it anyway. They didn't play great, but they played okay, which is certainly better than some other games that I've seen them play this year. So I'm going to go for Colorado on that one. Yeah, so I guess I have 3 picks the same as Melissa and a couple the same as Tyler. So we might have a little bit of movement here and there in our little 3-person standings next week. I guess that will do it for another episode. Make sure to check out addicted2lacrosse.com, which is where all of our archived shows are. You can get a hold of us at a number of places. Feedback at addicted2lacrosse.com will get to us via email. We're at Facebook as well, facebook.com/laxpodcast, and on Twitter as well at laxpodcast there. So feel free to send us your comments and questions. This has been another episode of Addicted to Lacrosse. For Tyler and Melissa, I'm Graham. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.